to the Amherst Theological Seminary Wednesday night devotional class brought to you by the auspices of Solid Rock Baptist Church. Pastor, I'd like for you to open us up with a word of prayer.
Father, thank you for the opportunity to get together and study your word tonight. I ask that you be with Nick and give him clarity of thought and the wisdom that you would have him to deliver to us. And we commit this time into your hands in Jesus' name.
Thank you very much. All right, we've been talking about the fall, and we've also been talking about how the fall revealed the sin nature in us. We saw some things that Adam and Eve exhibited, and it teaches us a lot of information about what the sin nature is all about. And then we were talking in the first couple of weeks about a sermon that had been delivered by Tim Keller out of Redeemer Presbyterian Church in New York. And he said, because we're made in God's image, we know that we're separated from God. And we live under the curses that were allowed by God. And because of these things, we just know something is wrong with us. We have this underlying guilt and paranoia. It's working. And Keller describes 4 things that we have that accurately depict what went on in the garden once it was revealed. Again, we're made in the image of God, and Adam and Eve demonstrated for us, unfortunately, what those things were. So guilt is the inner paranoia because we know we have offended God. There's also shame, which is that deep-seated regret that we have offended God. And it's the deep root of why we believe, and we just know something's wrong with us. It's that inner paranoia that we have. And insecurity comes from the fact we recall that they were ejected from the garden, and from that we get this business of insecurity. Who's going to take care of us? So then there's idolatry, which is false worship. And what we're referring to here, and what Keller wanted to refer to here, we're going to seek whatever brings us pleasure. We're going to seek whatever we think is our security. And if you've been following the news recently with the tornadoes and all the things that were going on in the Midwest, human institutions could not protect them, could they? They're in a long, hard struggle, unfortunately, and we need to pray for these people. And if you're led so to do so, support them. But what happens is human institutions could not protect them. Human institutions can provide limited remedies to what has been going on with them, but human institutions will not protect us. So we worship anything other than God under idolatry. That's actually the definition. We worship what we believe will bring us security. We worship what we believe will bring us pleasure. We worship what we think will resolve our deepest need. And there's only one thing that can resolve our deepest inmost needs. And who is that? Jesus Christ. And we also believe that something else in our lives can satisfy us better than God. So that brings us up to last week, where we started to discuss rebellion idolatry. Okay, and the belief system, there's 2 belief systems. I pointed out there's rebellion idolatry, and what we're going to get into tonight, need idolatry. Oh, we don't want that. All right, so we have, again, rebellion idolatry and need idolatry, and these 2 systems are so ingrained in us, only Jesus can solve our dilemma. We live in a sinful flesh, we will, for the rest of our lives. And what's important about this is what I first pointed out on the first night. Many times we Christians tend to think we do bad things. We sin. And we think we're capable of doing wrong things, which all you got to do is look at yourself, and we know that that's true. The thing about it is, we sin because we've got bad belief systems. We don't just sin in a vacuum. We don't just sin because we just do. We have certain belief systems that we started to point out last week with rebellion and idolatry, and I'm going to go over those real quick, that cause us to do things that many times we can't understand. So you may recall rebellion and idolatry, which was pride, and pride is the false belief, I am the authority, I am above God. And okay, God's nice, God's great, but I can put him off to the side. I'm going to do what I think best for me. And we tend to do this a lot without even really realizing it. This is the root reason why this happens. And we believe because we do have freedom of choice, we have free will, it's okay for us to come out of godly authority. And part of this pride, oh, come on, there we go. Part of this business of pride is we believe we must be better than others. We believe we must be in authority over others. We want to be able to judge them. That's what it means when since we're above God, I'm above everybody else. My self-defined notion. So it's okay. And the worst thing that can happen to me, and this is revealed as we go through these, the worst thing that can happen to me, and it's to be feared and avoided at all costs, that someone else be able to judge me. So I've got to present myself in the best light possible. But deep down, I'm the center of the universe. I'm the one who's in charge. I'm the one who's important. But the root of false belief of pride is choice and free will. I have the right to come out of godly authority as I see fit. Now, because of that, we want to present an image. The second idol we pointed out was facade. And facade means it's our own silly way of making me believe to myself, deluding myself, that I can prevent being judged by others, or that they will see me as superior to them. And so the reality of facade is that this is the part that just points how silly it is. We actually submit to them by responding to our perception of what they believe about us. I'm going to repeat that. We try and propagate an image in accordance to what we think they think about us. And in that sense, they really control us. So it's pretty silly. Now, the root belief of facade is I can and will and control and manipulate how others perceive me. I believe I can really do that. But if you think about conversations you yourself have had about certain other individuals, you realize by and large how transparent they are. It's not that hard to spite people. You know, we're terrible at hiding ourselves. The third false belief is that of security. And we believe that human institutions provide our security, okay? And the root belief of security is I can control what happens to me. Now, for many of us, we see our job as our security. we can see the federal government as our security. In my particular case, why? Because once a month, I see where my Social Security check has been deposited. Oh, okay, all's fine. Well, that's silly. That's silly. A mere stroke of a pen out of a certain individual's hand can go ahead and wipe it out. I don't think it would be legal, but it wouldn't surprise me in today's environment. So, and if you go to, again, for those who go out to a job and work, you'll see that email come in, or you look at your bank statement and there's a series of numbers and there was a deposit and there's your check. So therefore, that's your security. And I've heard many Christians, I had one conversation many years ago, oh gosh, if I lost my job, I don't know what I'd do. And you could hear the fear in his voice was palpable. And the mere thought of layoffs occurring would just send him into a tizzy. Then there's also performance, the false belief of performance. Now, in our guilt, we are ridden with guilt and shame, like we pointed out a little earlier, leading this paranoia. And what this really propagates is a notion, a fundamental notion that we owe God. And what performance does, I'm going to do all these good things, I'm going to be real successful in my company, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And the thing is, we're doing that because we feel we owe God. We're going to pay back what we owe. Okay? Now the problem with that is, if you could pay back what you owe, what's the point of Jesus Christ? What's the point of the article, what's the point of the cross? There would be none. There would be none. And this false, when we all do this, let's face it, we all exhibit all these things to one degree or another. And it would nullify the cross, and it basically is saying, since I'm doing all these wonderful things, God now owes me. Because now I'm being this wonderful person. Well, the Bible says I'm a sinner, lock, stock, and barrel. I'm an absolute sinner to the core. So the idea of performance doesn't really do anything for us. It just deludes us. The root of a false belief of performance is, I can and will control and set the conditions by which I enter God's house. Now, can you imagine somebody that you don't know coming up to your door? Nick, can you imagine somebody walking up to your door, knocking on the door and says, I want to come in? Well, Nick's going to say, well, who are you? What do I know? I don't know anything about you. Now, you can let me in. I'm a real good guy. You can let me in. I'm a real good guy. You ain't got to worry about it. How far is that going to get you, Nick? That's not going to get you very far, is it? That's the reason why we have salvation. That's how only the perfectly righteous can go to heaven. And that's the whole idea. But we have this silly belief, I can and will control and set the conditions by which I will enter God's house. And then finally, entitlement. Okay, since I am above you, the false belief of entitlement. Since I'm above you, I have to at least project at the very minimum the facade that I am and I deserve to have at least the same things that you do. Because I'm better than you. I mean, it's all about me. So therefore, if it's all about me, I'm better than you. So sorry, Nick. So, but we, and deep down inside, we can easily point to, and for the more humble among us, maybe this doesn't affect you, but you've done it in the past. I've done it in the past. So the root false belief of entitlement is life is somehow fair. Everybody should have at least the same exact things, except for me, of course, because I'm better than you. So therefore, I should have better things than you do. And we're going to discuss that when we discuss the next set of idols. Then finally, we have the pleasure false belief. And basically, since we have this churning inner paranoia of guilt and shame, we will seek drugs, alcohol, sex, you name it, to assuage this inner paranoia. And it's going to make you feel better for a little bit. You have that hangover in the morning, don't you? Okay? So, pleasure, I got to make myself feel better. I got to make myself feel better. So that's the 6 idols of rebellion, idolatry. This is what was revealed to us in the garden, these 6 belief idols. Now, they were ejected from the garden, and all of a sudden, Adam finds out he's going to be a farmer, and Eve finds out having children is not going to be the most fun thing she ever experienced. So need idolatry occurs when we make legitimate human needs our idols, our belief idols. And they are, and I'm going to go over each one. Purpose, provision, home, intimacy, I can speak English. Intimacy and acceptance, knowledge and identity. We're going to go into each and every one. All right, purpose. Comes from Genesis 1, 27 and 28. What were Adam and Eve supposed to do? They were to tend the garden and be fruitful and multiply, subdue and rule the earth. Okay, they were to rule the earth over all the other living creatures, subdue the earth, and work the garden. Purpose idolatry occurs when we see our reason for being anything other than our purpose in Christ. God went to the trouble of creating us and writing us into the book of life and all that because he wants us to go forth and bear fruit for the kingdom. And he's given us a calling. And once you discover your calling, that will fill you like nothing else. But men especially are prone to make an idol of their work. Okay? Because it fulfills them, and lots of times they're real good at it. I used to be real good. When I was a programmer, I was real good at it. And I took great satisfaction out of it. And we all do this. Women tend to make an idol out of their kids. Their kids become the most important thing in the world to them. And that's really not all that terrible of a thing, except when they're more important than God. And I probably just lost half the female audience here. But you get what I'm saying. God is above everything. And God will take care of what you need. He says it right out. I know what you need. Just come to me. Where do we go here? The root of the purpose idol is I'm free to believe whatever I like. Since there's no God, I'm not accountable to anyone. I can believe or do whatever I want. And if I even want to have one. And again, going back to pride and judgment, if my purpose is better than yours, or if I achieve more than you do, I'm better than you. And if I'm better than you, I can judge you. I can put myself in authority over you. Next thing is pretty obvious. Provision. We all need light, food, water, air, rest, pleasure, shelters, clothing, and all that. And they needed it. They needed all these things. And we still need them today. I like having a house to go home to. If I was living in Kentucky or somewhere in the Midwest right now, you know, if you've ever known anybody whose house is destroyed, and I've known a couple of people, and I told Kathy, and I said, we were watching the news, and I said, you know, We are so blessed. We are so very blessed. And, you know, we've never really had we've had a flood basement on a few occasions, but nothing like, and you remember a few years ago, people coming home from being away or what have you, and they'd come home in Elon, and their houses were destroyed down to the foundation. And what do? And your sense of security is really shook. And plying back into the pride and facade idols again, the core belief is, I have more than you do, so I'm superior to you, thus I can judge you. I'm better than I have. I'm better than you. What I have is better, so I'm better. Since I have more than enough, I don't need God. The more I accumulate, the more secure I am. We were watching again the news, and this this producer from CNN, who's probably going to go to jail for the rest of his life for doing some things he's not supposed to have done, discussing things. But they showed a picture of his house, enormous house. I forget how he was driving a real expensive car. He had a real expensive boat. All gone. This man lost his job, making I don't know how much money. Yeah. And he's done. And then they had some pictures of his wife. She wouldn't allow them to be interviewed, but of course they had to park outside her house and take videos of her, and she just had her head buried in her hands. Her whole security, her whole way of life is gone. But he was providing for them, and now well, I don't know. I'm not going to conjecture. So the false provision belief is the more that I have more than you, so I'm superior to you, thus I can judge you. Or what I have is superior to you, and still, since I have more than enough, I don't need more. I don't need God, because the more I accumulate, the more secure I am. And I don't know. I think we got too much junk at our house. Thank goodness I'm the only one. A form of security for our third idol is home. Genesis describes the location. Now I want to get into this a little bit. Genesis describes the location and boundaries of the garden. Now, if Adam was going to go and subdue, he needed to know where to get back to. This was his home. They saw the garden as their home. Now, Adam is interesting. I want to get into this because it's fascinating to get into. Where's my notes here? Adam certainly understood establishing a separate location, a home, for a newly married couple. And home idolatry is implicit in that emotional link we have for our shelter and our land, and how we perceive our security as rooted in that structure and in the land. I own it. Okay? When we bought the house, we owned it. Okay? It was mine. Whose is it really? God gave me the resources to do that. He gave us the resources to do that. But I want to go back to Adam and Eve for just a second. If you're Adam and Eve, what's a mother and a father? Adam did what? He named the animals. If you're Adam, what's a cow? What's a dog? What's a whatever they had back then? What language did Adam speak? How did he know these things? I get in a lot of trouble over this, but I don't care. I'll say it again. I really think God wanted the sheer pleasure of raising a human from an infant. Candace, you're experiencing that right now, for the most part. How is it at 3 o'clock in the morning? Depends, okay. But you get the idea. Get the idea. And we've all had the pleasure, many of us have had the pleasure of raising children and the joy that comes from, raising kids. I'm still jealous of your daughter for walking better than me. The central belief of home idolatry is that human institutions, again, just like security, protect me. That structure and that land protect me. And if I'm strong enough, I can protect myself. Thus, I don't need God. God doesn't come into my equation because I can take care of that. Since I can protect myself better than you, I'm superior to you. So you see how pride works its way into all these belief systems and plies into what our general sin nature is like. We have two more. Acceptance and intimacy. Adam needed companionship, acceptance, and intimacy. Genesis 2:24-25 employs that Adam foresaw not only the need for a family, but the need for a community as well. Acceptance and intimacy idolatry can be observed readily today. The core belief is I can achieve intimacy via sex or drugs or by alcohol or by projecting the right facade. I got to make these notes bigger next time. I can't let anyone see the real me, because then they could judge me. I can't let Candace see she's better than me, because then Candace I'm gonna think, now I love Candace and all that, and she's not like this, but take it as an example. We don't like to be looked down upon, but it happens all the time, doesn't it? And since I can achieve intimacy and acceptance in certain other ways, I don't need God. I don't need God because I'm perfectly capable of achieving my own acceptance and my own intimacy. And if you don't like me, oh well, I'll just go on to the next person till I find someone who does. The false... Oh, two more. Oh, I got it twice. Okay. Knowledge. Knowledge. Now, I want to get back to Adam and Eve. Adam knew how to communicate. How did he know what to speak? What language did he speak? How did he know what to name the animals, as I was just alluding to? How did he know what a father and a mother were? Okay. So implanted in us, and it's a good thing a lot of times, most of the time, is curiosity. We want to know. We want to know. The problem is, we want to know the improper things many times. Because after all, the scientists will be more than happy to tell you, we descended from apes. Okay? They're more than happy to tell you. And without a shred of proof, they're willing to insist that it's a law. But fortunately enough, it's not. Knowledge and our natural God-given curiosity regarding our temporal environment becomes our idol. Knowledge is king. Knowledge is what we have. The more we know about the human being, the more we can do. The more we know about this, the more we can do. And yet we are so limited in what we truly, truly know. Candace and I, last Wednesday, were discussing a YouTube channel called Mr. Ballin. And it's truly fascinating. Truly, truly, isn't it, Candace? And what this guy has done, there's a series of books out, and I forget the man's name, but he calls them Missing 411. Politis? Yeah. And what he documents is, over the years, there have been literally hundreds, perhaps thousands, of mysterious disappearances that no one can explain. I mean, they have found kids will get lost up in the mountains or whatever, and they'll find them 10 miles away. People have just documented cases. People have just disappeared. Stand right in front of you and they're gone. And there's no natural explanation for these things. And I'm inclined to believe that, what was his man's name again? Politis, David Politis. That there's something paranormal going on, and let me digress for just a second. I'm convinced there's a lot more of this demonic activity going on that we want to give credit for, because then we're going to be told that you're crazy by an all too rational world that somehow in all their rationality can't explain these things. But people are observing things. People are seeing things. People are experiencing things like I was just talking about that no one can explain. And I have a theory. I really have a theory, because the more I think about this, the only explanation, God says he will confound the wisdom of the wise. Okay? So based on that shred of evidence, I really think that what God is doing by allowing these things to happen, he's saying to us, you know what? You guys are so smart, you figure it out. I mean, stuff just happens, but we can't explain it. There's so much we don't know. There is so much we don't know. So, there seems to be no contesting the notion that the rational man seeks science, knowledge, and technology as the answer to our problems. So knowledge, and then the final one is identity. Oh, and if I know more than you, if I have an advanced degree, I'm better than you. Okay? There is no basis for anything in that statement, but we are degree happy. This is the age of the expert, is it not? Guess how many people have bachelor's degrees in this country? It's around 27%. The percentage of people that have master's degrees, I believe, is around 7%. The number of people that have doctorate degrees is 1%. Now, but if you're in the company of someone and they say, I got a PhD and this one only has a bachelor's degree, they're presumed to be the expert. They're presumed to know what they're talking about, and a lot of times they do. But we're still all the same at the foot of the cross. And what your education means when you stand before your Creator, it doesn't mean squat. He wants to know if you're in the book of life. So we have a need for an identity. Who we are in relation to the rest of the world. Okay? I can tell you, and hopefully it's obvious, I'm a man. That doesn't really tell you a whole lot about me, except one of my 55 genders, if I so choose. Okay? Now, if I tell you, if somebody introduces me to you, and, hi, my name is Nick. Well, that's great. How many thousands of Nicks are there? My name is probably not in the majority by any stretch, but there's a whole bunch of Nicks occupying this world. Nicholas. Now, that still doesn't really identify me, does it? If I tell you that my name is Nick Marika, now that starts to give you somewhat of an idea of who I am. It really doesn't tell you anything about me, but what it allows you to do is it allows you to segment people according to your own little rating scale. In the modern day, especially, we commonly see the quest to know who we are. You ever heard that frame? Well, I went and did this, this, and this, and now I knew who I was. Well, I know by going to look in the Bible who I am. And the problem is, we'll sit there and we will listen to the secular world tell us who we are, and we will take it as gospel. Many times all it takes is one or two people to say something about you that's not very complimentary, but for you it becomes the truth. For you it becomes your identity. So your foundational understanding of how I fit into this world and how I relate to others is found in these three idols: performance, facade, and security, as relates to this identity business. Think about it. If two men go up to each other and they've just met each other, what is going to be the first question out of their mouths? What do you do? If two women go and meet each other, Candace, you're so smart, I'll let you answer this one. What are two women going to say to each other? What's that? Talk about their families. Yeah, my husband is, we got X number of children, we got 2 boys and 1 girl, and all that, and my husband works at so-and-so. Okay? But that's the way we are. That's the way we segment one another. And the idea of what we're doing, James Dobson talked about this when he talked about kids in junior high school. They really have this need to put themselves in a pecking order. And this is a lot of where I got this idea from. They want to put themselves in a pecking order, and it continues on to when we're adults. But if you're a saved Christian, then the only thing that matters is you're a follower of Jesus Christ. Nothing else matters. Nothing else matters other than, well, this is what I do. Well, that's why, because that's where Jesus put me, to be salt and light, and coincidentally, he flows provision to me through wherever I am, a high school teacher or whatever it is. But unfortunately, we tend to segment people. We tend to put them into categories. Next week, what we're going to do, and I hope some of you have, I know the books are taking a while to get here. I hope some of you have ordered them. I did put the notes out there on the net, on Facebook. I put it out there under files for the Amherst Theological Society discipleship class. I put the first 5 weeks of notes out there. Next week, we're going to talk about judgment and self-seeking. You may have heard me talk about judgment several times because of our pride and our self-seeking. We're going to talk about how destructive this is within ourselves by trying to, again, we so jealously hold on to these idolatrous beliefs, which are so deeply embedded in us, they were given to us in the womb, that only Jesus can resolve the issue. You can't. It's too deeply embedded in you. You need to repent and come to Jesus Christ. And then he can start that, and that door of salvation opens, and you can walk down that path of sanctification where the definition of success is the day-to-day relationship and walk with Jesus Christ.